think about the demand, the consumer. What does the consumer want? Not what can we produce. What can we produce that the consumer wants? What are we working on in crop sciences these days? You guys tell me, because I'm not exactly sure.
Genetic modification.
What is it?
Genetic
modification? GM? Is there a demand for that? Not in Europe, I can tell you. They don't want our GM tomatoes, right? Bad news. Monster tomatoes. All kinds of horrible things about it. Are we doing the right things at the university in terms of production? Are we thinking, are our scientists thinking about what the consumer wants and responding to what the consumer wants? And I don't know, maybe the answer is yes, but maybe it's no. And if it's no, should we be doing that? Because if we respond to a demand, say the demand for healthier products, omega-3 fatty acids, obviously I don't eat very healthy because I don't know what these things are, all the additives and the good stuff, the vitamins and all that kind of stuff. If there's an increase in demand for the healthier goods, then that's what we should focus on for supply. That's what we should focus on for adding value. Also, we can add value through processing in between these markets. What holds us back from doing that? Does anybody know? Like, why don't you see huge bread factories here? Why is the only bread factory we have now called Earl's? Don't say bread, say Earl's. Used to be McGavin's bread factory. For anybody who was around 50 years ago. Why do we tend not to process a lot of stuff in the prairies?
So there's no demand here for it.
Right. It all comes down to the demand again. Where do the people live who are going to consume the products that we produce? Yeah, generally not here. So the cost of trucking wheat to a central location where you've got a lot of people living who are going to eat the bread is a lot less than shipping bread, right? The wheat is going to sit around and be wheat for a while. The bread's going to go moldy. So it's a lot more expensive to ship these products than it is these products. So that's a real challenge because we have a low population here and in the prairie provinces. And in Canada in general, a lot of our products get shipped south. So how do we prosper and add value in between these markets while paying attention to the fact that there has to be a demand for the products? This is the problem with agroforestry. We have more than half of Saskatchewan's covered in trees, right? Most people live down here and not up there, so we don't pay attention to that. So what is the demand for wood products in Saskatchewan? That's okay, but we have enough. So actually planting trees on agricultural land for those traditional forestry products was a no-brainer. You don't even have to talk about increasing the supply. There's no demand for it. And if there's no demand, what's the point? Nobody's going to supply it. So agroforestry is not going to take off for those particular reasons, not to produce end uses. So we have to think about the consumer, we have to think about demand, and the end product. What is that end product? Demand gives rise to supply. Because there's a demand for bread, there's going to be a supply for bread. Because there's a demand for flour, there's a supply for flour. And there's a supply of wheat. Okay? Now if you add all this stuff together and look at a shock to the market, let's say there's a shock in the demand for bread. Say there's a shock in, or a change in taste for a certain type of wheat or a certain type of product. How does that factor in to the economy here? So you're now able, you should be able to look at the exogenous shocks in each of these markets and either shift the supply curve or the demand curve and trace what happens to prices. When the price falls in this market, it's going to fall in this market. And probably some people in the processing might go out of business. And so those will also contract and expand. Same over here. Okay. You've heard the story before? Yes? I imagine you have. Okay. The story works for agriculture products, it works for minerals, it works for renewables, non-renewables, and it always starts with demand. Demand gives rise to supply. Okay. I think that was the last thing I had to say on markets. We'll talk about sustainability next, and I'll try not to talk so much. I've got some videos that I found on YouTube that we'll watch in here, and then I'll also post the link to them. So we can apply some of this stuff. Sorry, I ripped you off 20 minutes again.